But please remember to support your community as well. So I know that's 10 minutes of ranting. I'm really, really sorry, guys. I promise I won't do that one again, but please get behind those things. I've spoken to a heap of you guys and you are keen on those events. Just got to put your hand up and actually go down there and say, I want to reserve my ticket. And they'll help you out with that and work with you for it. So let's talk about AFOs. Hey Simon, I think you're the only one on today. A bit quiet tonight. Let's talk about AFOs. So describing an AFO, there's a couple of things I've found you've really got to pay attention for. And there's a whole bunch of AFOs. So you can get the basic spring leaf, which is a sort of a polypropylene plastic device, very basic, comes from Opal, cheap as houses, goes on the foot, takes up a bundle of room in the shoe, and will do the job for someone with drop foot. But you can have rubbing and you can customize them a bit and put padding in, but effectively it's the most basic element. Now, I actually don't think they're a bad option if you can fit it in the shoe and you have all those things. But a lot of time you get people who don't want to wear big clumpy things that get in the way of show off. They can be a bit sensitive to what people think if they're walking around with a brace. So we need to think about some other options there, but also we've got to think about their biomechanics. So I'm going to speak about the other options first. The next one, you've got the carbon fiber, the spring leaf, which comes down the back of the foot. You know what? Here we go. So the spring leaf comes down and it's like an orthotic that's flat that comes in here. So it's pivoting from this plane. The next one is you've got ones that loop around around the ankle. Sorry, I just got a message pop up. Made me think. Around the ankle and come down to the side. Now they can be a little bit more petite, but you can find sometimes people get rubbing on the malleolus, but they can be a little bit neater and tidier, quite neat and fancy. Once again, comes in plastic or it can come in a carbon fiber. So they're lightweight, they'll last forever, but they cost a hell of a lot. Thirdly, then you've got a range of carbon fiber ones that come which way and what. So we'll talk about those. And then you've got mechanical AFOs, which will actually have a mechanical mechanism that will provide rebound or response forces. So you'll have ones that are spring-loaded that will push the foot up and whatnot for more extreme cases. And once again, we've pitched up the price range there. So, and then you've got two other options. You've got a Ritchie brace, which is made by the lab here in Queensland, QOL. Now, the Ritchie brace is a plastic orthotic with a sort of a rubber hinge through this part of the ankle, and then it braces to the ankle. Now, it's quite effective from what I've heard. I've never used one myself. I think there's a few issues with that, that you've got a customized orthotic that might need updating and whatnot, and they are quite hard, and from what I've seen for some, people have a lot of rub points and whatnot if they're not absolutely squilling and perfect, or you've got other forces involved. So they're quite a complex thing and they're quite expensive for that. So you really got to make sure that it's the right thing for them. So finally, when you've got someone who is minimalistic or someone is a bit conscious about it, you've got a Dickie brace. So a Dickie brace is simply, it's a sleeve that velcros onto the leg, the lower leg, and then it'll have hooks that go into the shoe and elastics that hold it up. Now, it's the most minimalistic control, but it's the most minimalistic looking. And that one's quite popular. Still quite expensive for what it is. I think they're about $160 odd, but can be quite effective for what they want, and for those more mild sort of cases, works a treat. So you've got those, 5 options. You've got a spring leaf, you've got the different assortment of sort of where the piece comes down through the mounting. You've got your carbon fibers, which once again, your Ritchie brace, your Dickie brace, and then you've got your mechanical springs. Now, what I want to talk to you guys now about is how do you select what type of AFO is going to be best for your patient. Now, just so you guys know, I'm going to plug myself here a little bit. I worked with a guy who was in the army who did that hike across the Arctic with the Royals, and he'd been shot through the hamstring, which had ruptured his nerve structures, and he had absolute drop foot. So what we needed to do with him is he needed a device that would go into a snow boot and would manage his ongoing swelling issues as well. So quite a complex mechanism. In the end, in the very short of it, he had a carbon fiber device with metal spring loaded or metal loaded bars that would respond to him to give him more action. And then in the boot, we actually took out the airbags out of a CAD walker or a CAN walker, and we put them into those boots and sewed them into the space. So when he started to swell, he could modify the amount of pressure and grip that the boot was providing. And he was able to complete that really successfully, and he was really happy with it. Obviously very extreme conditions, so there was a whole range of other things, but he said the boot was moving around a lot and he was struggling with that, and that made that option very easy for him to manage. So really, really cool way to manage that, and I was pretty proud of my work there. So I've had some pretty good thinking about this, and we actually went through about 3 devices. So you've got to think about what plane or mechanism they need the most support in. Do you need frontal plane support? Do you need sagittal plane support? Or do you need transverse support? Now, most people will have movement obviously on all 3 planes, but for example, are they drop footing really badly and really traditionally, and it's just a complete slapper, slap foot, and it's a real sagittal plane issue? Where do you think we need to look to have that hinge? Do we want to hinge down the back? Do we want to hinge on the sides? Where do we want to mount it on the leg? So I'm going to use the Ritchie brace, and I'm not going to pick on the Ritchie brace, but this is the thing that I see as a bit of an issue, is the Ritchie brace has 2 bars that go up on the leg, and then they Velcro around. So the hinge points don't actually, that bar's going to have a shear force. Every time it starts to load, that bar's going to resist, and the Velcro is not going to hold it forward, and you're going to get the shifting. And that shifting is unfortunately can cause rubbing and irritation, and people not really enjoying that. Now, fitting that's obviously really important, but that's a flaw for me. So if someone's got a real slappy foot, I actually really love carbon fiber straight, and then just a straight piece of carbon fiber under. Very thin bars because it's very discreet. And what that does is it means they can just go get a shoe, they slide in the shoe, and then they go away, and it does its favour for them. So you'll see them online. I might post a couple of these pictures of these options, but it simply wraps around the upper leg in a semicircle, and then you Velcro the front. But it means when they start to go on the slap, the hinge is behind them, the hinge is here, and it's not really going to move around and irritate them because it's going to hold them in place. So I find that really, really useful for those real slappers. Is you should probably look to have that hinge point coming through this frontal plane axis. Okay, so slappers, frontal plane axis mechanism. For someone who's slapping down and has really bad pronation or eversion, really no control that way, yeah, of course, you want that sagittal plane mechanism, which is like a Ritchie brace, which is one of the things where they really do really well. Or you want one of the carbon fibers with the metal shanks that come down the side here and give that mechanical load, because then you can also control a bit of this, but you're not going to get them roll out of it. So think about that. So slappers, frontal plane mount, so it comes from behind. People that are slapping down but then really having issues with their frontal plane pronation or supination, you want to have the hinges coming down the side of the leg and the mounts on the side of the leg like an ankle brace, because that's what they're dealing with. If you get those 2 things really well defined, you're going to find you're going to have a really good response rate. Now, as you're getting a bit older, that's where I'd probably say, okay, they're going to probably need some mechanical value, but the cost value offload is there where you've got to think of. So you've got to consider what price range you're sitting in. A plastic will do the job, as I said, but you can have some rubbing. The carbon fibers tend to be a lot more slimline, a lot more expensive, but they will last forever, a carbon fiber. So please consider what type of advice you want to give them. Now, the mechanical loading ones, they're probably for people who are still really, really active, because they can return to sport and have something that's giving them back that rebound to pull the foot up in a very quick, responsive way and allow them to continue high velocity function. So they'd be the ones that mount down the side with the mechanical springs. A Ritchie brace isn't a bad option, and whatnot. So they're the really important things. Now, the other thing I want to consider is, do you need an orthotic with an AFO or not? Personally, I think it's a good idea, even if it's a very mild sort of device, because you're controlling a whole lot of other movements as well. And that's where I really like, once again, the carbon fibre down the back with just a straight shank, and then you can plonk an orthotic on top of that. I think the EVAs with a flat sole on them work probably the best with these things, but anything will work because it's just the bed. It's the bed that the orthotic sits on. I think that works really, really well. And the beauty of that is the AFO is not going to really change, or the foot shape's not going to affect what the AFO needs to do, and you can change the orthotic as they need to change that, so you're continuing their care. So that's one really big one. The problem, as I said, with the Ritchie brace is if their foot's changing, that bottom half needs to be redone, and that's quite a task, and you're taking it away from them, and so on and so forth. So that's just one of the flaws I see. I sound like I'm hitting them up the ring. Look, I'm sure lots of people have had really good success with them, but I'm just giving you my opinion. So please forgive me for that, and don't criticise me too heavily. If you've had a good experience, please comment below. So that's really the end of the spiel about AFO. So to reiterate, you've got sort of 5 options. You've got to think about what plane of movement they are. Slappers, I feel like you should have a frontal plane hinge. People that are having problems with eversion, inversion, supination, pronation should have a sagittal plane hinge. People who are very active should have a mechanical hinge, which most likely will be sagittal. And then, do you need an orthotic or not? I think they are good, and that's where the carbon fibres become best. If the person has permanent drop foot, it's not chemo related, which can be quite transient. It's definitely something that you should probably try and convince them to get the highest quality product that you're using to get the best value back for that one. So hopefully there's some tips there about that, guys. I know it's not much. I know I'm not some sort of expert, and there's heaps of products out there. Happy to discuss with anyone if anyone's having some questions about what AFO to use or whatnot, if you want to reach out. But all in all, really think about what plane of motion you're working at, and you'll have success, and you'll avoid those rubbing issues and whatnot as best you can. Sometimes it is a bit of trial and error, but otherwise, if you put those into play, you should reduce those risks. Once again, slight apology for my earlier rant in the first sort of period of that, but please get behind events for our professional body, and our events, personally, they're going to all be great events, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Please don't forget to give me some suggestions for any further pod TVs or even workshops you guys would like us to create, or people you'd like to engage, and keep a lookout over the next couple of weeks. We're going to have something a little bit different that's a bit more business orientated in regards to legalities and accounting of having a business or working within a business and things like that. So look out for those. Can't wait to see you guys then. You guys have a great evening, and I'll see you guys next week. Catch you guys.